Hi, it's Rick here. Just before we get underway for this week, just a quick note about Friday and Saturday and our extensive coverage of AeroExpo Prague. If you've got a question for a manufacturer like Cessna, Cirrus, anyone like that, and you want to put something tough to them, then email us at this address that I'm showing you on the screen right now. At fullflap.tv, we're not afraid to ask any question. Well, as long as it's relevant, you know what I mean. So send in your email now and we'll put that to them this weekend.
No, I'm not Vicky Ferrer, but you are still watching fullflap.tv. She's not hiding either, just off screen. She's on holiday once again in Canada. So you've got me, I'm Richard Hakey. You might have heard my voice on a few adverts. Anyway, let's get ready for a very exciting week on fullflap.tv. Before I talk about this week, let's get you some news. Look at that wing bend. Yes, Boeing are gradually getting their dreamliner ready for its first flight. These tests subjected the airframe to a force of around 2.5 G. It should be airborne within 60 days, but don't expect to be getting one soon. There are thousands of hours of testing still to do, huge amounts of FAA paperwork, and all that relies on the workers not walking out from the plant again, of course. Until now, if you wanted a caravan that flies, you would have had to fork out millions, but no more. This, unbelievably, is a light sport aircraft and it's big enough to sleep too. Now, keeping with the theme of camping, you have to put it up yourself, or in other words, build it, which is going to take longer than a tent. But it's not slow, with a top speed of just under 140 miles per hour. That's faster than most caravans, obviously. A private flight from the US to Cuba may sound like a joke, but the CEO of Air Journey, Thierry Pulley, says it's not. He says his firm will sort out all the paperwork and there'll even be time to visit a cigar factory, as enjoyed by revolutionaries like Che Guevara and Fidel Castro, although presumably you won't be able to bring them back. Not that anyone would try, right? The idea is still awaiting approval. Looking ahead to this week now, and the first of the AeroExpo shows gets underway in Prague this week, with London coming up soon. Rick and Rob are both going to be there, and as Rick promised a couple of weeks ago, you'll be going with them to the hotel, around the site, and if they sit down and chat with people, you'll be welcome to join them. We're going to be releasing a whole load of stuff on Friday and Saturday and then rounding it up next week. So if you can make it, please do. And if you can't, then keep a careful eye on the website for features as fast as we can get them to you. Oh, and if you happen to be the organiser of an event that you'd like us to feature in the future, then do give us a shout. Looking back at last week now, and we spoke to a man who has an alternative to the flying car.
Fear not, it's not the logo for the latest dreadful superhero remake movie from Marvel. This is something much more useful. You see, we have a problem as pilots. We can get places at super fast speed, but then what do we do when we get there? David Shelton was working on flying cars and today came up with something much more simple. Why not stick a motorbike under your plane? So we designed a pod to do it.
One of the main benefits is there's a lot more airports that you can utilize. Half the airports out there don't have ground transportation, so I can pick any airport on the map, go there, and reliably drive to where I'm going. And well, when the motorcycle's in the pod is shaped right, and so on the RV-10, for example, we lose about 5% of our airspeed in cruise, but it looks like a big pod, and it has a lot of what we call wetted area, but it's also covering up a lot of area on the bottom of the fuselage. So the net increase, if you do it right, doesn't add a whole lot of drags. It has a built-in winch system, so it's attached to the airplane with just 4 pins, and you just pull the pins and winch the whole pod down to the ground. And I like to cheat. I use a cordless drill to drive the winch, so it just takes a moment, and then the whole thing rolls out from underneath the airplane. So my motorcycle weighs 220 pounds, and the winch system means I don't have to lift it up at all. It's really easy. Just takes a couple minutes to get the bike out and be on my way.
David Shelton there. Now, we had hoped to bring you part 2 of the fashion show, but as you know, it was a bit of an experimental feature, and the sound for part 2 was quite frankly naff. So we're reshooting it with the same judges later this month. Instead, we replayed a feature on diesel engines.
Whatever you try to do, lots of fancy camera angles and loud pumping music, an engine still looks like a hunk of metal. Not very inspiring. Well, one hunk of metal may be changing all that, not because of the way it looks, but because of what it does.
Where's the mixture?
Don't need one, it's a diesel.
Right, no mixture. What about carb heat?
Don't need that either.
Okay, so how do I start it?
We put in the stop control, turn the key and go.
So diesel's cheaper and it's easier to use, but does it work?
We said we'd test the diesel engine, so let's see what it's all about.
Now the boffins amongst you are probably saying that diesel weighs more than avgas. Yes, it does. But it costs so much less, you can fly further for your money.
Climbed gradually higher and higher. We're above the clouds now, but we've not lost any of the engine power.
So it's cheaper, it's easier to use, there's a lot around, and that means one important thing: less time worrying about what's under the hood.
You sort of wonder why more planes don't have engines like these. Fantastic.
And finally, if you don't live in America, then the idea of retractable pants is probably going to put a smile on your face. But putting terminology aside, because pants means underwear in England, of course, if you didn't know, retractable pants have picked up one of the prestigious Lopresti Awards for innovation. The team at BD Corp have designed a pant that covers up the undercarriage wheels in flight, making them more aerodynamic. The makers say you'll gain as much as 8 knots in speed for just $1,000 of investment. So don't forget, nothing on Wednesday this week, but some awesome coverage on Friday and Saturday and next week. Plus, we'll also be reviewing an aviation video which we have mixed feelings about. I'm Richard Hakier and you are watching fullflap.tv.